We should be starting now. We should be live.
Maybe.
Yes. Well, it says your event is starting. And
Are you sure?
okay, yeah, I feel pretty confident that we are live. To some extent, my mic's a little low.
Are you sure?
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, we are totally live now.
This is. There we go. Always sit up straight for the practice run. I always say.
No, I just slouch all the time.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Random Respawn Podcast, where we talk about gaming news, gaming things, and gaming stuff. We apologize for last week's hiatus. I had family in town.
Everyone was away. I wasn't. I was still here.
And it was a holiday in the States, so many people had that Monday off and decided to not bring all of their gear with them because they're all lazy. Mm-hmm. Lazy people, I say. Marshall, don't forget to start recording on your end.
I've already been recording. It's fine.
All right, good. That's good.
Don't worry about it.
So,
great.
Caleb will not be able to make it with us this week, but it is okay.
He's playing God of War.
So he kind of needs to beat it because
it's true because we want to talk about it.
We want to talk about it, and Dave beat it, and so I think I'm gonna get Dave on here.
Oh, Dave! Oh my God, I haven't seen Dave in forever.
Yeah, Dave was on.
The fifth member. Hi, by the way, hi, Uprising Firefox. How you doing, man?
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, dude.
So this week we're going to be talking about what we feel like have been some of the most innovative consoles, not really counting PC. I know that the Omega, one of those, was essentially the Commodore Amiga was essentially just a computer, but it was only used for games.
Counts.
Right. So I maybe that'll pass, probably not, but we want to stick to mostly consoles. And so
and also maybe to broaden it a little bit, not necessarily innovative, but also important in a specific way.
You're absolutely right. So that have kind of affected the gaming industry in some form or another. So whether it is an innovation or if it was a failing of sorts. So consoles
and why specifically,
right, that have actually had an impact on gaming industry since its release. And sorry, I'm bumping stuff and whatnot.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
it's all good. By the way, Firefox, we are doing just fine. Again, apologies for the hiatus of last week because here in the United States, we had Memorial Day, so we have vacation, and I was still here, but the other guys weren't. So
we call it holiday. I mean, it's what
he says. Can't wait for the new Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Oh, they actually announced one. Well, granted, it makes sense that Ubisoft would make another Assassin's Creed.
Right. Was that part of the leak? Is Odyssey? Uprising.
I think it was.
Is this going to take place in Greece? Is that right?
That sounds about right. I want to say so. I think would make sense. That'd be kind of cool.
Do you want to take a look at the books? I wonder if a lot of the games that were leaked at E3 they're just gonna it was a leak. Yeah, I wonder if these are now intentional leaks or at this point if it's just like
a lot of it is just pre-planning, showing stuff off so that way they can get other things into E3, if that makes sense. So it's like there's gonna be Assassin's Creed. They don't care. Like they may show like a gameplay demo instead of having to discuss what it is and all that stuff. But whatever.
Well, yeah, whatever.
Whatever. It's fine. We'll find out in this coming week.
Yes. E3 is this coming week. You probably forgot, Marshall.
Nope. Trust me. No. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to just wake up at the crack of dawn and be like, all right, I gotta make sure I watch the stream. I don't care if it's EA. I just need to watch it. I need to know.
Right. Yeah. No. It's Actually, I may be around that time, so I may be able to do some live tweets of the games that are being announced and whatnot. So
we could just live stream it together and watch with our reaction.
That would be interesting. Oh, maybe we should do that.
We should.
How many hours is that?
Well, what do you mean?
Like yeah, I mean, it's like, is it going to be like an 8-hour stream of us just reacting?
No. It's because, they don't do it all day. It's like they'll have the big guys like Bethesda, Ubisoft, EA, and then Xbox and Sony, and then Nintendo. But that's not like all in one day. That's like split up for like 3 days, and it's like 1 in the morning, like 1 in the afternoon, and stuff like that.
1 in the morning, like 1 a.m.
No, like 9 a.m.
Oh, 1
Usually,
in the. Oh, I see. I thought you were saying that it was like 1 a. It's like you're just saying like a conference will take place in the morning, not
correct.
1 in the. I see. Okay.
God, no. That's the stuff that happens in Europe.
That's yeah. I had the opportunity to go to E3 2 years ago.
That's right.
Because
yeah.
I've got a buddy that works in Square, and I had to decline the offer, and it's haunted me ever since. But this year, I did not get that offer.
I think that was the year with the amazing Sony press conference. That was just.
Oh, he goes, let's
they
get
had
it going.
They just had raw opening of God of War, which they revealed, and then just announcement, and then game announcement, game.
Okay.
That was it. Yeah, that was. They never did it again. I don't know why they don't do that again. Hopefully they do that this year. But anywho, we're getting off track already.
We are.
Which is
actually, is E3 happening this week, or is it?
I think the beginning of it. I think it's like starting this week or weekend.
Okay. So
like it's either Saturday or Sunday, and then rolling into like Monday and Tuesday.
Okay, so if it rolls into Tuesday, that would actually be good. So next week we may talk about God of War, and in a segment we used to call Game Club, where we would all play a game and then kind of talk about how we felt about it. And so we may bring that back with God of War, since it seems like everyone in the world bought it. And so
that sounds about right.
Especially, I mean, we will have an E3 podcast, kind of like our thoughts and stuff like that. But I like the idea of us of a stream minutes. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So E3 is coming up. That is gaming news. So I will allow it. So let's get to the tonight's topic. Do you want to kick it off?
Now for the gaming stuff. Yeah, you can kick it off.
So I don't necessarily have it in any order specifically. It's just kind of like the way I thought of it, and then bring it about. And so I'm not necessarily saving what I thought was the most innovative. And sometimes I feel like consoles that we think are innovative may not make like the quote unquote top 10. So like for me, we all know Atari was innovative. We all know that like the original, what was it, the Odyssey, or the very, very first,
the Amiga?
No, the Magnavox. Yeah, the Magnavox Odyssey. With Pong, we all know those are really important, and they have affected gaming.
Started the console,
right?
Yeah,
but
and pretty much gaming in general. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna. I just don't count those. It sounds weird. It just, to me, I care more about like what kind of happened in the 80s forward, because that more directly affect me than it did.
That's true. Well, during the 80s, we had the actual crash itself, because of the amount of competitors that were out there and the amount of garbage that was out there.
There was.
And I'm not talking about just games. I'm talking about systems. Like,
there was a ton.
Of systems out there. And they were all like copycats of each other, essentially.
Yeah. So that was actually what made the NES is definitely going to be on this list. Fine. I'll just get out of the way. The NES.
I was about to say, we might as well just start with the NES.
So the big thing for Nintendo's first console was that it was cheap to make, which was fantastic. It was accessible to everyone.
I believe. Yes. For every console they sold, they actually made money.
Which is rare, because normally you make it off the software. And it was the first certified by Nintendo, so you would get rid of all of the crap that was out there. And that's what made it pretty amazing. The gold seal.
It was first off, Firefox. No, I think you're not the only one watching. There are a couple of people. That's not, there could be lurkers there that don't post in chat, but that's fine. But secondly, for Nintendo, again, they didn't sell the console. They sold the ROB, and it came with a Nintendo.
I thought was that for the very original, or was that like a Japanese exclusive? Stuart, what's up?
No, that was for the United States specifically, because of the crash and how there was a huge stigma at the time of gaming.
For sure.
Because of the crash and all that stuff. And so what Nintendo did for this, essentially the Western market, I think it was maybe specifically for the American market. I don't know if it was the same thing for Europe. But it might have also been like a trade thing or tariffs or something like that. They sold an actual robot toy, Rob, R-O-B, which is where that comes from.
Right.
So if you ever played Smash Brothers and you pick Rob, he's literally essentially the original Nintendo mascot, because he was a robotic toy, and bundled with Rob was the Nintendo Entertainment System.
So
and that's how they were able to get it in so many freaking homes.
It's not so much necessarily that Rob was the innovative part of the Nintendo. For me, it was actually
Of course,
the gold seal certified by Nintendo. And so if a third party game was not up to snuff, it wouldn't be released on the console. So I felt like it definitely honed in on the quality. And so as opposed to, I mean, this was before really no gaming magazines existed and the internet was not a thing. So you couldn't find out whether or not there was quality behind something, and so you kind of trusted this Nintendo seal, and it worked. It worked really well. They had a phenomenal quality, and when they got rid of it, by that time, it's like you could find out whether or not something was good or not. And so
Nintendo single-handedly brought gaming consoles back from wherever the hell they were at that time.
Right.
Which wasn't a great spot.
And Nintendo was a toy company.
Yes,
so,
and again, that's why they did the whole Rob thing. Which, again, that was that was their ploy to get it into as many homes as humanly possible, and it worked.
The Famicom.
That's why I say Rob is pretty important. Maybe not as important as the Nintendo seal quality, but I think it's still pretty much up there.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, Nintendo, definitely. The NES, the Famicom, I think that's hugely important.
If I remember correctly, then afterwards Sega got into the mix when Nintendo was gonna do the Super Nintendo, I believe.
The Sega was
the
out.
Sega Genesis.
The Sega Genesis was out before the Super Nintendo, and
Sega has one Nintendo.
Yeah. Sega has it when Nintendo don't. With Sonic, and the Sega console was the first 16-bit console, and it also I think was more powerful because it was it was specifically made to port arcade games over into the home.
Again, that was the whole marketing. That's exactly why they had Sega has one Nintendo, because they pushed hard on it has more power.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's where Sega introduced the console wars, pretty much.
Yeah,
where it started.
That's a good point. I would say, yes, in terms of like actual console, it's like, to me, Sega, it was innovative, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it was that innovative because it was another cartridge-based console system, much like Nintendo's was, and it didn't necessarily offer more or less features. I mean, it did offer better graphics, but to me, that's not innovative. But basically, actually calling out Nintendo and that being the basis of a console war, I feel like that changed the gaming industry a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that changed how marketing worked. Back then. And I mean, hell, they're still doing it now. Maybe not as much.
They're pretty nice to each other, but
yeah, they're just kind of doing their thing, and they may rub shoulders, but at the end of the day, it's both the PlayStation and the Xbox run the same SKUs and all that, but whatever. What came after that?
It's not chronological. Like I don't care anything about that.
I know, but at the same time, I'm just trying to remember what came after that. Was it around the time that the PlayStation then got into the mix?
Well, the Super
then
Nintendo came out
one with actual 3D graphics that started a thing.
Right. Well, so the PlayStation came out, and then I think the 64 came out. But what Stuart says right now, he said the PlayStation was the big jump in his opinion.
Yeah.
Sony partnered with Nintendo to create a CD-based console, and Nintendo pulled out at the end of the deal.
That's right.
Sony, which is why, I mean,
which is why Sony became a console maker to begin with, just because they're like, well, we have this thing, we might as well use it.
Right. And so the PlayStation was definitely going to be there, but it's just the very original PlayStation. If you found one of those, they still play, and it's because Nintendo made it. Nintendo doesn't make a console that just dies. That's true. They just don't. And so, especially when the PlayStation Slim came out, and Sony was like, "Oh, we've got a good idea." It never worked. It just didn't.
Stuart says discs increased the load time, but gave a whole lot more space for resources.
Right.
Yes.
Well, so one thing that I thought about disk space and just going to an actual CD-ROM based games are that you no longer necessarily had to build the game, because all old cartridges, if you open them, there's actually a circuit board, and it was a hardware
It
powered.
had a little power battery on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was
That is the thing. They will eventually die. It's just a matter of when.
You'd have to replace it, and it was actually a computer that interfaced with another computer that you could play. So it was, to me,
it kind of blows my mind if you really think about that.
Yeah.
It's a computer that actually, it's a little mini computer
right,
that you put into another computer to make them work both at the same time.
I mean, like, so like the physics cards and stuff like that, it's like you would have to build that into the cartridge, and that's insane to think that, you know, you used to write games in machine code. And I mean, even looking at the music and all the MIDI files and the shortcuts they had to make to just get a cartridge to work, to me, I felt like to code a game back then on a cartridge is way harder than it is today. But I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not games have always been insanely hard to program and everything like that. But as you're absolutely right, because once when they went to CD-ROM, unless it was a portable system, basically disc-based has won up until the Switch. But that, to me, it's a huge change and shift. It allowed a lot more storage. And that was actually, so the PlayStation was on the list. I think that is more significant than the PlayStation 2, despite the PlayStation 2 being the most selling. Rachel's crawling on the ground.
Well, it's because Evie was chewing her
her legs off. Is that why she's crawling around? Like
no. My dog was actually chewing her toy bin, which is like it's a rope bin. Mm-hmm. So because it's a rope bin and it's rope, she's like, "Ooh, it's a toy." So she'll literally take all her toys out and then literally start chewing on it. And it's like, no, we don't want you to do that. So right now, Evie's hiding under my desk while my girlfriend's like scolding her, like, "Why are you doing that?"
Stuart made a really good point about just hard drives just being way bigger and also faster these days. So that's a really good point. Especially with SSDs, you don't have to worry about moving media anymore, which also makes it safer.
The most recent consoles, they don't have SSDs, do they?
No. They still have like the Switch has solid state drive in it, but it's 32 megs. It's something small, but I mean, when you've got a console like the Xbox or the PlayStation where they're just sitting, like, you don't need to worry about like movements and stuff like that, accidentally scratching the discs. But I think they all use laptop hard drives now, so they don't even use like full like sized 7200 hard drives. I think they're all 5400 RPM hard drives. But that's kind of technical.
Yeah, that's true. Also, Stuart's saying, "No, sorry, you missed my point. You're wrong." While he's probably typing his point out right now, I also want to mention, going back to Nintendo with the N64, one thing that everyone keeps forgetting about that's actually kind of important is the Rumble Pack.
Man.
May I remind you that they were the first ones. Again,
with Star
Nintendo
Fox, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Nintendo cannot stop making gimmicks since then. But that was kind of their first one. And then secondly, after that was the expansion pack that you stuck in because remember the Donkey Kong Country open world kind of Banjo-Kazooie game that came out?
DK64. You actually had to you put the red thing in there. They gave you a fork to pop out.
Yes, it came with the game came with the expansion pack because the game required it.
Yeah.
Because Rare had to work with it in order for it to work. And so that was a huge thing. It was,
That was neat that they built the console with the ability to upgrade like that story.
Thinking about that, you're right. Like, it was just a little thing that like you just popped open the lid and it was right there and you could just take it out and then stick in the expansion pack. You're totally right. I forgot that was just a thing.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Stuart explained what he was trying to get at even more so. And I did not even scratch the surface of what he meant. Oh God. Yeah, no, he's absolutely...
It's too much for me. I can't. I'm sorry.
So Stuart says the hard drive controllers, the chips on the control board on the bottom of a hard drive, have more computer than an N64 console, which is absolutely true. It's not like you're just taking it. You don't just have like a blank storage and put it in there. There's actually a computer built into the storage that you're using. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. So modern CPUs even have a separate CPU that the user can't access that Intel can push updates to reprogram and fix bugs on the CPU. So
I don't know what you just said. You just
it's
said
a okay. We'll keep moving. So we said I'm actually going to say that the PlayStation 3 I thought was a another jump in the sense that I thought the core processor was super interesting. The cell processor that the PS3 had. So the PS3 kind of forego and it got rid of a graphics card. So it didn't have a graphics card, but it basically had I think 6 CPUs that were supposed to calculate all the graphical things that you needed to do. And it was
weird.
Insanely hard to port games that came out for the Xbox over to the PlayStation 4.
It was a nightmare.
It was absolutely a nightmare, which is why all the games that were ported, they basically wrote it for the Xbox because it was easier.
And tried to get it to work on the PlayStation, which again, in the case of Bayonetta, when that first came out,
awful
ran in sub 20,
Bayonetta, Red Dead,
30 frames.
I mean,
even Red Dead.
Oh, Red Dead was awful for the PlayStation when it first came out. So, but like going from Xbox to PC was a lot easier because it had kind of the same architecture. I think
it's the same. It's x86 architecture, or is that the more recent one?
Yeah, it was
it's basically like a little mini PC at that point.
But when the PS3 first launched, it honestly was the first Blu-ray player. I knew old people that had a PlayStation 3 because they wanted a Blu-ray player. And it was literally the only way to play Blu-rays.
It helped because it was built into the console, whereas with Xbox, they tried to push HD discs or whatever the hell they called it. I can't remember. But it was actually a separate thing that you had to buy and then plug into your Xbox.
Yeah.
Because they didn't.
It was a USB
program it that way.
HD DVD drive. And that was...
Thank you.
That's what the Xbox tried doing. But actually, the Xbox 360, because the original Xbox, it had a DVD player built into it, but you had to buy the remote.
Oh, that's right.
But there's actually a reason for that. I had no idea, but the reason you had to buy a remote for the Xbox was to keep the original Xbox cost down, because if you enabled DVD playing, you would have to sell, or you would have to give a portion of that sale to royalties to play the DVD format. So in order to circumvent that, basically you had to buy the remote, and by buying the remote, you'd be paying the royalty to play DVDs. It's super duper confusing and really, really weird, but yeah.
Wow. That's copyright.
Right, yeah. So now it's like, I appreciate that cost-saving technique because I had DVD players already, but I had no idea. It was super annoying. But yeah, you would actually be paying for like the copyright of the DVD player.
Copyrights and trademarks are
right.
SOB.
But yeah, I think the cell process, especially towards the end of the PS3's life, I felt like some of the even Naughty Dog towards the end of the Uncharted series that was coming out for the PS3, I felt like they say that at one point they were like, we've only just kind of begun to scratch the surface of what the PS3 can do, and I fully believe that. I
totally get that, but at the same time, because of how over the top it was with cell processing, a lot of people probably just didn't understand how to really program for it.
It totally, don't get me wrong,
I totally get that.
Totally sucked. But it's like, so the PS3 had the cell processor, what I thought was awesome, but it's not used anymore. So that was a mistake that Sony learned.
Can we go back to the PlayStation 2 real quick afterwards? I'll let you finish your thought.
Definitely. So the cell processor, it changed the gaming industry in the sense that Sony was like, okay, we need to kind of streamline this so we can have better ports. It did Blu-ray, which was awesome. And then a third was, it's the only console that I know of that supported Linux at launch, which I thought was also really cool.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so about that. I know that some people bought I don't know personally people who did this, but there were schools out there, universities that bought a ton of PS3s to use them in a render farm with Linux installed to do insanely high, basically mining for Bitcoin before Bitcoin was a thing. It was something, something else. But
yeah, of course.
So that I was always really impressed by the PS3 and the games. We're not trying to talk about the games because games really do make or break a console. But
yeah, that's true.
I've always been impressed with the PS3 and its architecture and how it did things. But
remember one of the first, I have to talk about games, but to talk about the scope of what the PS3 could do even at launch. Remember that super massive FPS game that could support like
Oh,
128
Mag.
people.
Was it Mag?
Mag.
Mag,
Yes,
yeah.
I believe it was Mag.
Yeah. It could
Um,
sort, yeah, in one
it,
map.
it was like 256 people in a map all at once. It was insane.
The number
It was
was
like
ridiculous. I don't know if it was 250, but it was a ton. It was a ton of people. It was the
I,
most, I think, ever that you could support in a game. That wasn't an MMO. It was an FPS.
I want
It
to
could
say
be.
it was one. I want to say it was 128 versus 128 for each side. I think that might have been it.
Which is
'Cause-
crazy. Yes, but
Yeah, considering that it's been so long that like Battlefield 1 being able to play 64 players on a console is like everyone's like, oh, it's crazy. I'm like, but Mag did that on a console already. The previous console is nuts. And that's just, what the cell processor could possibly do. And that was at the beginning of its life cycle.
Yeah.
Which was nuts. But to go back to the PS2, I just want to say I think a very important part of it, of why it did so well, and I think it still is the most sold console ever, right?
I think it
PS2.
is. Yeah.
I'm
In
pretty
terms
sure
of
it
in
still
terms of entire life cycle, I think
in
that
terms of the entire life cycle, I'm pretty sure that's still the case. Is simply because of the massive library that
Yeah.
it had, and that's also because it was so easy to work with. That literally, the PlayStation 2 spawned AA developers because anyone can freaking make a game on it. And it wasn't like the GameCube where it had those stupid little like mini discs. And sure, like the GameCube was actually a little bit more powerful, which is why Resident Evil 4 actually looked and ran better
on
the
the
GameCube than the PS2.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. Just because it's slightly more powerful doesn't necessarily mean that's actually going to like get more games on it. Just as long as it can run well and look decent and then program well enough, you can have a huge amount. And yes, Stuart did actually confirm, thank you, that Mag had 256 players. That's insane.
It doesn't even seem real. The fact that this came out to have that.
It's been, just a side note, when was the last time besides like the most recent PlanetSide game on PC where you had that many people in a first-person shooter shooting each other?
I don't think ever. I know it holds the Guinness Book of World Records for that, but
I believe like that's just, and it bums me out because I do wish we had more multiplayer games like that just were like, yeah, that game that you think is big, how about we just make a game that's like 5-10 times larger, and just why not? Because like I feel like that's super cool. But for the PS2, I think so the huge library was just insane.
Well, PS2 I think was the first console that I can think of that had a backwards compatibility, because every single time you would get a new console, you basically just knew that you weren't going to be able to, you know what I mean?
You're right. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think you're right. That just out of the box, it could play all PlayStation 1 games,
right?
No problems at all.
And so the Wii could play GameCube games, but I mean, you couldn't. You had to go from the 64 to the GameCube, so like there was no in between. But
that's true, yeah.
Because
they dropped cartridges finally, and then
So that was so. Stuart actually said, "I'd say that the Xbox was more innovative. It is essentially PC compatible, which was the beginning of you seeing developers being able to develop multiple platforms simultaneously."
That's true.
I agree with that, but to me, that's I don't know if that's innovative as much as it is to. So it's like, at this point in time, consoles and PCs are so close and so similar that I don't ever plan on getting another console unless it does something insanely different like the Switch has done. And it's something that I've kind of said before. So at this point, it's like, I'd rather just get it for PC.
I think also it depends on the games.
I mean, if it's...
when in doubt, it always comes down to the games. Again, you wouldn't be able to play Bloodborne without a PlayStation 4. Everyone, every now and then I hear, it's going to come to PC eventually. No, it's not. It's never, ever going to come to PC. Ever.
Right.
It's a Sony interactive entertainment game. If it's got the Sony brand on it, it's staying there forever. Sorry.
So, I mean, it's not even like, to me, it's like, is Bloodborne worth a $400 console? To some people it would be. And I'm not saying that. I just, to me...
Oh, no, I get that, yeah.
You're absolutely right. It does depend on the game. But it's just like, at this point, I don't see consoles offering enough of a difference between what the PC can do and what they can do. And the PC can do it a little bit better and faster.
At the same time, though, I would argue, sorry to cut you off,
that
for console wise, for each game it depends on where the major population goes. Like for instance, For Honor's still kicking. They're about to show off a new thing at E3, like a brand new like faction apparently that they're going to be adding in and then updating the game even more. That game, that population on PC is tiny. While on console, it's way bigger. Like for some reason oh yeah. But at the same time, again, it's hard to balance for that game because again, on PC it's 60 frames, while on console it's only 30. But again, that's a different argument entirely. But yeah, I guess it all just depends on if you want to play a multiplayer game, where's the majority of the people going to go? Because it's not like you want to go and play Mortal Kombat on the PC, Mortal Kombat X.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
When that came out, that was a buggy piece of crap on PC.
That's a good point.
Yep. And so it all depends on what's kind of the primary spot it's going to be on. Like, you're not going to want to play XCOM on a console. You're going to want to play it on PC. Just, just saying.
But no, it's at Microsoft definitely started. I don't know what the GameCube was written in. I know that it had ATI graphics cards, so I assume that it was more similar to the Xbox, but it definitely wasn't because they used the tiny DVDs, which I don't think was
Xbox. Liked. I would also like to state for the record, Xbox, the original Xbox, OG the Duke, never made any money, ever. I'm pretty sure that console, no matter how many games they sold, always stayed in the red. Actually, I'm pretty sure Microsoft has never actually made a profit on their console section of their company. I want to say, even with the 360, I don't think they've ever made money.
I don't know whether or not. I really don't know about the finances of it.
I'd honestly have to look that up. It's been a while since I've looked at those numbers, but I want to say so far the console side of Microsoft actually hasn't made a profit.
Mm-hmm. So next console I would say is the GameCube. Not the GameCube. Crap. The Game Boy.
No one bought the game.
Oh, I love the GameCube is one of my favorite consoles.
I know, but it had no games.
Are you kidding me? It had some of the best games to ever exist.
Yeah, but what about third parties and stuff? Yeah, like
Resident Evil 4.
Look, dude, I know, but like
Beautiful Joe.
They had a lot of really good first party stuff. But at the same time, it's like I love all these first parties, but all these third parties that I love as well aren't on the GameCube.
Beyond Good and Evil, Beautiful Joe, Resident Evil 4. These are all third-party games that are on the GameCube, that started off on the GameCube.
Can you like get in contact with someone at Nintendo? Because supposedly, I'm just saying you do, for argument's sake. Can you just get in contact with someone at Nintendo and tell them to make a freaking sequel to Beautiful Joe? Tell Platinum. Get Platinum on the phone right now.
There was a second. There were two Beautiful Joes.
Oh my God, you're right. I completely forgot.
I know you did.
No, I don't. Did no one buy that one? Is that why?
No, the second one was excellent, but it just wasn't as it was as good as the first one. But the thing is, since the first one came out of nowhere and it was so unique and so different, it's like how do you top that? Just the same thing, like the difference between like Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 3. It's like it's still a fixed camera shooter where you're kind of running around, but Resident Evil 4, where they changed it, it just seems so new. And Resident Evil 7, when they changed it again, it just felt so new. It was one of those things like where Beautiful Joe 2, it was always supposed to be part of a trilogy, and they stopped after the second one, which is really upsetting. But no, I think to say that GameCube didn't have any third-party games is crazy because they had phenomenal games. But
at the same time, it's like those games you really couldn't find on another console until way later.
Right.
Way later.
The GameCube, I don't consider it innovative. I think it's one of my favorite consoles of all time, but I don't necessarily think that it was innovative or changing of the industry in any way. And in terms of Nintendo, I feel like they always have like a kind of weird interim console. Despite it being very good, it's like it just has like a weird life. And I feel like
right. It's been that for a while where it's like every other console is like it's okay, but no one buys it.
Right. So I felt like when the Wii came out, everyone owned a Wii. I mean, every single person owned a Wii.
It's because they went for the casual audience, the everyone audience because of the motion controls. I mean, again, most people bought it for Wii Sports, and like that was it. Like
Yeah.
that's like going back to the original Nintendo Entertainment System. Like people, like parents bought it for their kids for Rob as a toy, and it's like, oh, it came with a Nintendo. Oh, okay. But it's almost like in a way, I always like to make that parallel just because it's so weird. It's like, do you wanted to play Wii Sports? Oh, okay, so I'll just buy this console and that's it. And so everyone freaking bought it. It's amazing. But
It's
then, that was the generation that really introduced a lot of people into gaming, including the Xbox 360, like, with Call of Duty and all that. That started everyone is going, oh, hey, video games are actually pretty good. Yeah. I think that would be important of it. The importance of it.
So I didn't mean to say GameCube. I meant Game Boy. Although I do like the GameCube. But
do we want to go into that stretch? Because I mean, it's a handheld.
It is a handheld, but it changed. I mean, to me, it's obviously the precursor to the Switch, and I think that the Switch is extremely innovative.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, we could talk. Oh God, we could talk about Switch the whole time.
Yeah, the Switch has done some amazing stuff, but it's one of those things where you can now game on the go, which was not a thing before. And then you've had things. It's weird that only Nintendo has ever made a handheld that seems to last. I mean, don't get me wrong, the PS Vita, from everyone I know who's ever owned one, says it is phenomenal and amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, but Sony never freaking supported it.
And and that, not even talking about the PSP, which used UMDs. And
again, because they don't freaking support it. They send it out and like, that's it. That drives me freaking nuts. Like, just because those Sony handhelds are way better than at the time what Nintendo was putting out.
They were. The screen on the PS. I had the very first PSP. I think they call it PSP 1000, whatever the model was, and it was amazing. It looked so good. The movies on it were beautiful. I had one movie, something dagger movie, Flying Daggers. I don't remember, but it looked great, and it sucked because I could only play it on the PSP. I could never like bring it to a home and it's like, oh, let's all crowd around. And also, so the super weird thing was the UMD format was pretty popular in Japan, except that for some reason, for the PSP, it was in like a plastic container and the disc was inside of it. And I think that was to prevent it from like moving and being on the go, because you couldn't take a regular UMD from elsewhere and put it into the PSP because it wasn't like inside that plastic container kind of thing. So it was kind of like,
it was weird, yeah.
Right, it was kind of weird, but
sure what that was. Maybe it could have also been like an anti-piracy thing. Who knows?
Oh, it could have. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? You're right. But so I thought, I just think that the Game Boy, and then all the other iterations of the handhelds that Nintendo has come out with have been really good and pretty amazing. And as cool as the 3DS was, I don't think it's as innovative as the Game Boy. And then I kind of skip all the other handhelds, despite them being excellent.
Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, Game
3DS,
Color.
Pocket. It's just micro. It's just so many things.
There were so many variations because, again, Nintendo likes to make gimmicks. They love their gimmicks. It's like, it's just another reason for people to buy something else, and then,
Yeah. So for me, it was, I think the only handheld I would actually say on this list is the Game Boy, personally. But that's me. That's how I feel about that one. That's how I mean. It was a dedicated gaming device that you could bring around, and it had no other. It wasn't like the Nokia N-Gage or anything like that. It didn't double as a phone, or anything. It was just. It was. You can play Mario or Tetris on the toilet, and it changed everything.
This is very true. I mean, we could just go straight into the Switch and just. I just want to state. I just want to state for the record. Like, Nintendo kind of put themselves in a weird conundrum with the Switch because it's like a console that's also a handheld. Mm-hmm. That's better than the DS in terms of hardware and all that jazz that you could just take around with you wherever. So it's like, are they just going to stop making 3DSs and just stop making handhelds and just work with the Switch? Because that just seems like the smart thing to do,
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things where, in terms of battery life and durability, you will never beat a 3DS that like, so it's one of those things, like if you've got like a small kid, like you get them a 3DS. So I don't know in terms of like if we factor in age and things like that, I don't necessarily know.
Yeah, who knows?
But yeah, so as Stuart just said, Nintendo's always had an interesting development philosophy with games. Flagship Nintendo games always revolve around some new gameplay mechanic, and then they build the games around it. And that's
Yep,
absolutely true. You are
that is
100% correct
absolutely true.
about that.
Yep. I mean,
Nintendo
the
is
1-2 switch is that weird little party mini game that is all about, hey, look what this console can do.
yeah, I sold that game. It was not great.
Nope, not at all.
But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, Nintendo has always, no matter what anyone says, Nintendo has always been a gaming console first. They've never ever. So it's like Xbox One launched as the one box you'll ever need for your living room, and it had
TV.
it had
Sports.
TV. Yeah, you could start streaming Netflix and things like that, and then you
They
could.
they failed. Oh my god, the Xbox One, I still say is one of the biggest failures next to the Wii U, simply because the Xbox One tried so hard to be everything but a console. I think.
The Xbox One was actually going to make this list. I kind of mentioned it in our Slack group earlier, but it was one of those things where uh the fact that you had to buy it with a Kinect and they said it doesn't
Yeah,
work
the fact
without
that the
it.
Kinect is mandatory.
And then that you weren't allowed to share games. It would be console locked. And then I'll never forget how like the backstage of the PS4 they were like, hey, how do you share games with the PS4? And they just hand the disc over. And it was like, ooh,
Oh God,
that
that's
was a little bit of a
right.
burn.
Oh, I forgot that literally you couldn't give a physical copy of a game to another person. It was
Right.
tied to. Oh my
And
God.
then they backtracked on all of these
Oh
things
no,
right
they
away.
backtracked on literally everything because of how much of a failure it was, and it was also $100 more than the PlayStation 4
Right, but all of these things were basically backed off before the console started or even like 2 or 3 months into it, which is crazy because the whole
before
time
the end of the year.
they
Yeah.
were saying how integral and important and how it could not be separated. And then they did, and to me that was just like, okay, so did they just lie the whole time or like did
Well,
they
then, and then also, more importantly, you always had to be connected online in order to
Oh,
use
that's right.
it.
You did. You had to be
Yep.
connected
And there
online.
was the big thing that Jeff Keighley asked, what's his face, who no longer works at Microsoft at the time. I don't know if he was the head guy. And there was him asking, so what about the people who are overseas who cannot play, who don't have internet connection? And he said, well, we have the console for you. It's an Xbox 360.
Ooh.
And it's like that went viral. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why he lost his job. Because it's like, what answer do you have? It's no, you can't use the Xbox One because you didn't need to have an internet connection. Oh, it's just so bad.
Right. And so I definitely think that they've taught the industry what not to do. And even like it's kind of like what you were saying. It's like the Xbox One X, which is insanely powerful. I don't even know anyone who thought of getting it. I was walking past a Microsoft store at launch for the Xbox
Ooh,
One X, and
ooh,
not a person was there.
ooh. You just reminded me of something. Now, here's an important question for that. How many people actually know, consumer-wise, know that the Xbox One X is actually a different, more powerful console than the Xbox One?
Well,
And I ask this because turns out many consumers didn't actually know the Nintendo Wii U was actually a completely different console.
right, that was a naming thing, but to me,
But
it's
it's I mean,
like,
it's kind of in the same realm because of how similar the name is.
well, I mean, you've got the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. To me, it's the same thing,
Yeah,
but
I mean, but at the same time, it's like that the PS4 Pro is marketed specifically to the people who are in the know, and for most people aren't actually gonna care if they get a PS4, just a regular one. Like a lot, I think many consumers aren't really gonna care too much. I mean, I don't know how many games take advantage of the PS4 Pro. I mean, it's also for people who have 4K
well,
as
no,
well.
that's the One X is in the same boat. It's basically Xbox's PS4 Pro. It's not a
That's
new,
true, yeah.
yeah. So it's not even a new. It's just a more powerful console of the same thing, and so which also defeated the purpose of the Xbox One because they were saying that it was made to basically never needed to be upgraded.
But also another big problem is why would you need to upgrade to an Xbox One X? What exactly are you playing that would require it?
The only thing that they had that Sony didn't was I think Oh my God, what was it? I don't
And that's the weird
know.
thing. It's like I'm thinking very hard. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they would do 4K Xbox One X, but it's like usually they'll also have a game or game or two
Oh, that
that
takes
it's
advantage of
like
it.
that takes a big advantage of it.
Was it
And it's like
Forza? It may be Forza.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I don't know. And that's the weird thing that Microsoft has been in such a weird like spot recently in the past 2-3 years is that like again compare that the PS4 E3 where they showed off God of War and then just nothing but games the entire time. But then go back to the day or two before with Microsoft's press conference and they're freaking talking about Minecraft again.
Oh, I forgot they were
And,
talking about, yeah,
and it's
Minecraft and PUBG.
have you oh god. What? Get the Xbox One X for PUBG and still have shitty frame rate.
Yeah.
I
But
don't get it,
but
man.
yeah, that's I don't know if Microsoft will come out with like a new console after this.
I wouldn't be surprised that they drop out simply because of how bad it's been for them recently.
Hmm. But it was bad for Nintendo with the Wii U, and then
Oh no, it's the worst selling console of all time.
of all time,
And I'm pretty sure it did worse than
more
the
so.
GameCube.
No, the
Yes,
GameCube did fine. I don't know why you constantly. The GameCube was fine at the time. It was fine. It
but
wasn't amazing.
no, but it still was the worst selling console. I want to say if
Of
I
those
I'm,
three. No,
of
are you
I
counting like
think
the
also
Sega
of just
Saturn? Like or the Sega Dreamcast didn't sell that well
I
either.
well that's true. Yeah. I mean those
I'm
and
tired of
that
your
killed
GameCube
and that's
bashing.
right. And
Dear
that
God.
dude, I own a GameCube. I freaking loved it, but
I still, yeah.
I want to say it. GameCube was one of the worst selling consoles for Nintendo until the Wii U.
I'm not gonna argue against that. I mean, what else
I
was
want to
there?
say
You know, it's like,
because I know Nintendo, the NES sold boatloads, the Super Nintendo sold boatloads, N64 sold well, but not as well as the previous two, and then the GameCube didn't really do well at all. It did worse than N64. But then the Switch and then the Wii came out and it was amazing. And then the Wii U was the worst thing ever.
actually, what about the Virtual Boy?
What do we even? What,
Like, is that the worst selling Nintendo console of all time?
is it actually a console? What does that even count
I
as?
don't know what it counts as.
It's just it's the oh god, it's the redheaded stepchild of the bunch, and you don't really know what to do with it. Not gonna lie, I owned a virtual I own a virtual boy.
That's why you can't
I
see
loved it.
anymore.
I loved it. That's true. That's why I can't see.
So that's the
anymore.
thing. It's like Nintendo's made these consoles that have been kind of a commercial failure, but we've loved them. Like I love. To me, the Wii U was the best way to play Wind Waker and a couple of the other Zelda games. It was the best. The fact that you could look down, see a map, and not have to literally stop your gameplay in the middle of the ocean. It's like, or even to do some inventory selecting as you're in the middle of a fight. It was the best way to play some of these games, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a great success in terms
Did
of
they ever
sales.
bring Wind Waker, the Wii U version, over to Switch?
No,
I'm
not
surprised.
yet.
If not, I'm surprised they haven't yet. I mean, pretty much, if they haven't brought over every single game from the Wii U over to the Switch, they're out of their minds if they havenent.
Oh,
Simply because, again, no one freaking bought a Wii U. So there are so many games out there for the Wii U that they can bring over.
Some
that they can
games
totally
utilize
do that.
the touch screen on the console. So with the Switch, it's like if it's plugged into the dock, you totally lose the touch control. So it
That's
definitely.
true.
Stuart says, so one thing I'm interested in is Microsoft is a really good position to push a lot of things up in the cloud. They run their
That's
own
true.
public cloud, which is true. I imagine that Microsoft's next console might take advantage of that. If they are clever, they will have some interesting strategic implications. And that's kind of what I thought was going to happen with the Xbox One. I thought they were leveraging their cloud aspect of the game to help run
But
the
they
games.
didn't.
But they didn't. But also at the same time, it's to run some games on the cloud require a pretty significant internet connection. Not insane, but somewhat significant.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason because again, not a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who still have not great internet connection. Like that's just a thing.
Yeah.
So the technology isn't technically there for a lot of the consumers. The technology's there, but it's just in order to get it to everyone, it's just not there yet.
Right. And so it's I completely I mean I completely agree. I think especially to use I mean no one else it's you got Google, Amazon and Microsoft and I think maybe IBM, but really those four are the only ones that actually have a legitimately solid cloud infrastructure with their own servers and not relying on someone else. Like
Yeah.
even Apple was using Google and Amazon servers to do a lot of their iCloud stuff. I know that they're starting their own farms here or there, but it's just like Microsoft's in such a unique position. But I'm not sure if they'd be able to leverage that.
Random side note. Yeah, I think you might find this fun. Did you know that Google recently got rid of their "Do No Evil" clause, or whatever it was?
It's actually no, it's still there.
Oh, I thought, because I swear I read a
Yeah,
while
no,
back
that was
that they got that they actually
that
got
was
rid
a
of it.
clickbaity article.
And then everyone, and everyone was like, "Well, I guess they're just not hiding it anymore."
No, it is absolutely still there. It's like it was like located in like 8 different spots or something like that, and then now it's only like located in like 6, or it's something like that, where it's like they didn't actually get rid of it really, but like it was an article that everyone like,
Okay. Good old clickbait. Wouldn't
Yeah.
be the internet without it. All that, yeah. Rage goes a long way these days, I guess.
Actually, so Stuart does say the cloud, some of the cloud computing through the Xbox One may be one of the reasons why it was underpowered in comparison to the PS4, and the backlash from the no offline play thing may have put them in a corner that they couldn't get out of.
That would explain why they had online only. Because
Right.
they have to have the cloud. Okay.
So yeah, it's that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, again, it's like that's just bad marketing. If you're just going, yeah, everyone's got great internet connection. Yeah, who doesn't? Like most of the country, actually.
Sadly, most of the
sadly, most of the country, like all those poor places that just have Comcast. I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
Existence.
Oh.
So it's getting close to the time, and
Let's do the time.
we've talked about a good amount of I mean, I guess we are kind of getting into talking about the Switch, but the Switch is still so young, but it's just
I'm curious to know where it's going to go. Hopefully they get some more games into it, just because it's just the one thing that's just been really bugging me recently the past few years with the Nintendo console is they make some good consoles. They just don't freaking support it with the games it needs. Like, you get a game a year. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. Because no third party ever plays on it, because usually the hardware is so inferior that the games that are making for their competitors, Sony and Microsoft, don't run on Nintendo consoles.
Right. So
it's just so annoying.
That's the interesting thing, is because with the Switch using ARM as their processor, that's the same that they use in cell phones. So it's written kind of in the same. So, and also they've got an NVIDIA chip inside of them now too. What was it, a Tegra or something? Not Tegra.
Oh God, I have no idea.
Stuart will know. Stuart always knows that
kind of
stuff.
Stuart always knows. Yes.
But so that's what I liked about the Switch, is that it's the same architecture as, I think, cell phones, and since it is a portable console, no one's expecting like stationary console graphic support, which is awesome. I mean, we've played an HD open world Zelda with no loading times, which is phenomenal. You know what I mean? Mario Odyssey was phenomenal. Bayonetta's there now. It's like, you've got Shovel Knight and a bunch of other Stardew Valley. So many things are coming to the Switch that are not just Nintendo games, and they're porting a lot of the old ones too. Oh, Tegra is an NVIDIA ARM chip. Okay, perfect. That is exactly it. So it's one of those things that I think is, no one is expecting God of War graphics coming out of the Switch, whereas when you had a Wii U, you kind of expected the same level of graphics from a PS3 or a Xbox 360, and you weren't getting that power, and I think that hurt them a lot.
Yeah, that actually makes the most sense about all their decisions, but unfortunately, they just weren't good decisions. I think
it showed. With some of their sales and stuff like that. I definitely.
If you want to play the Microsoft brand without an internet connection, we have the console for you, the Xbox 360. Ooh, wrong answer. That
was not a great. So it's the Tegra X1 that powers the Switch.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we could just quickly talk about any crazy things that are happening before E3, like stuff that's being revealed. I mean, got Fallout 76 is a thing.
Right, which is the
I guess it's.
chronologically it is the most recent Fallout to take place after the actual Fallout.
I don't know much about it. I want to say it's like an online game
Oh,
or like I don't know. I don't know if it actually behaves like it's a single player game, open world single player. I'm not too sure. I think there's something fancy about it. Then we also got, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That is the Greek thing / Sparta thing, which seems pretty cool. Getting more information about Red Dead Redemption.
oh, so Microsoft actually bought GitHub. Sorry, that's huge.
Oh no, you're good.
I know that they were in talks
Just
of it.
just now?
Well, no, I
Oh
mean,
wow.
they were talking about it for a while. I didn't know they were actually thinking about. I know a lot of people were kind of worried about it because of the privacy issues that Windows 10's been having. But GitHub is
Yes. The privacy issues, yeah, that never stops. And also I think it was more recently that it's like every time you now have to it forces you to update every time Windows 10 has an update now. Is that true? That's a thing that's been around for a while now.
I do think that you can kind of disable it or something like that. I don't really know. It's kind of annoying.
It's still kind of that's
Um,
kind of weird. I don't know.
they did. They actually bought it today. Wow. All right.
Wow.
For like,
Okay,
I think,
cool.
I remember GitHub was valued at like 2 billion, but GitHub wasn't making any money for a long time anyway. So
Interesting.
it was super well. So you could push your stuff up there for free. GitHub is like SoundCloud, where they're both are super well known names that have amazing users, but they don't make a lot of money. And so
Yeah.
it's I'm curious as to see how that'll happen. But the E3, you said something about E3 that I was like, what about?
Oh yeah, like just stuff that we got more like news that coming out before E3's being that's being shown in E3. We got on EA's end, we've got Anthem, a teaser trailer for it, which is basically like their Destiny competitor. They have it's a teaser for a teaser or whatever. It's just like 5 seconds of like, hey, get ready to look at Anthem. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, I hope it does well, simply because if they do that, then Bungie needs to get off their asses and actually work on Destiny to make it better. And then also tomorrow, actually, Bungie's going to reveal their next major expansion for Destiny 2 that's coming out in September. There was a teaser for it today. Anything else crazy? Some new information about Battlefield 5 and more customization options and stuff, which I don't know. It sounds like how they're doing it for Battlefield 5 is they're going down the Fortnite route of pay customization stuff, where it's like it's new. They bring out new stuff that's like on rotation that you can just buy outright, or you can possibly get free, but it takes a while. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we will we'll have an E3 episode where we'll definitely talk more about these things.
I know. This is just all the stuff that's coming up now pre E3. So we'll hopefully get some news on some new stuff.
I like that idea of you and I being live as
we should. That would be fun.
All right,
I actually would be able to have someone to talk to. It's like, oh, look at that hype shit. I could talk to you about Death Stranding when they finally reveal gameplay for it, which apparently that is confirmed that is going to be a thing for Sony.
Well. All right. Thanks so much for which may have a second, third level effects. Something. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What a wonderful outro. That was perfect.
Oh, sorry. I was just reading Stuart's thing. Stuart has such good. I love reading, especially because Stuart knows so much about programming and the way that computers work. It just that stuff interests me super. Yeah, it's true.
He's our tech guru for whenever we need questions.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So I'm Josh Raptor. It's Grand Marshal. Wave. Look at that. He saluted. That's how much he cares. That's
goodbye.
Goodbye, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. All right.
We'll see you next Monday. Goodbye.
Bye.